You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Love Talk Live. I'm your host, Jaime Bronstein, and today I have with me Sean Hotchkiss. Welcome.
Thanks, Jaime. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited we're doing this because we are going to be talking about, so Sean's a coach and a men's coach, and we're going to be talking about such important inspirational content for the men out there that want to have relationships, but it just doesn't seem to be working. So I'm going to read to you guys a little bit about Sean, and then we'll get into these great conversations. So Sean Hotchkiss is a men's coach and writer based in Los Angeles, California. For nearly a decade as a journalist, he filed stories for some of the most iconic men's publications in the world: GQ, Esquire, The Wall Street Journal, and Men's Health. But his work to make men's lives better was only the beginning. In 2013, Sean began his own epic healing journey that unearthed a new purpose: to assist men in getting to know their inner lives, their emotions, and ultimately their true selves. To date, he has coached hundreds of clients and leads weekly men's groups where guys of all backgrounds can come together to share, celebrate, and support each other. And at some point in the show, and feel free to say it now, how people can join these groups and find you just for fun. Plug it away, your website or whatever that is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my website is just seanhotchkiss.com, SeanHotchkiss.com.
Okay, and we'll plug it again a lot. So, Sean, I just want to just say how much gratitude I'm in for you and for anybody else who's doing this work, because I know that in the world that we live in, there's this misconception of a man who shares his emotions or gets in touch with his emotions as maybe weak or vulnerable. But the irony is that being vulnerable is not weak. It's actually so strong. So please take it away. Tell me your story. How did you get into this work? And what do you do with these guys?
I mean, I agree. I think that with the work that I do, like most of what we're doing is really like deconditioning from that process of growing up as a man in this culture, and that we're taught that to be vulnerable is weak, etc. Mm-hmm. And that's something that gets driven really deep from a young age for young boys. So like a lot of guys have to do this work, when they're in their 30s, 40s, even 50s. So my story is I got into this work from a very personal angle. My dad passed away at a young age. I was a senior in college, and I was just kind of wondering, in the wake of his passing, I was wondering, asking those big questions like, who am I? What does it mean to be a man? I watched this happen to my father. I don't want that to happen to me. So what does that require of me, et cetera? So that was kind of the springboard for my journey into this stuff. Okay.
And so at what point, so I know you were a writer for a while. Mm-hmm. So the writing was before this, and then this is what kind of like transpired and what inspired you to do this work.
Yeah, I think I always had in hindsight, I think I always had a yearning to connect to other men, which is how I ended up in New York writing for men's magazines and speaking to men. There was always this, because of the loss of my dad, because of the fact that my dad wasn't super present in my childhood, there was this yearning to connect to other men. So it kind of happened unconsciously, and I just got drawn into this world. And I loved meeting some of these guys, like older guys in the industry and stuff, that like really drew me into, like, in the magazine world there. Like when I got into magazines, there were still all these kind of like old guard classic magazine guys in New York. Like you can probably picture what they look like just like really sharp, well dressed. Like I was working at.
Is it like John Hamm?
Yeah, kind of. Okay. I think we were still like collectively sort of in the fashion world coming off the heels of that Mad Men era. So there was actually guys that kind of looked like John Hamm in these offices. And I just thought they were so cool. And it drew me into that world. And it was a really seductive world. And what I found there, though, is that there was a lot of amazing stuff there, but there wasn't that deeper connection that I was seeking with men there. It felt more superficial. And so that kind of, okay, I got to this point and I got to this height that I fantasized about. I'm working at amazing magazines and meeting these amazing guys, but like, I'm still sort of yearning for something more.
Well, so Sean and I are in school together. We study spiritual psychology. And one of the things that we talked about this weekend is that when you get an idea and an inspiration, if you don't do it, somebody else will. And speaking of will, it's the will. It's the will inside, the willingness to pursue your calling. And it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that you had such a yearning to help men in a different way than you were kind of on a surface level. And so you really listened to your heart, your soul, and you created such a world for yourself that is transforming the lives of men. And I know that the work that you do is amazing. So let's get into how do you take a guy from the conditioning that he had from childhood, from being maybe having the fear of being vulnerable? How do you take that guy or these guys to the place where they realize that actually vulnerability is how we connect and how important it is for a relationship? Take us through that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, mostly, when I encounter men usually, and this was certainly true of myself too, it's like we learn to be very well armored. We're very well guarded. Like guys have very well constructed walls, like don't get too close type of walls. And so the first thing that I do when I'm working with someone is like that relationship becomes perhaps maybe the first time in their life that they've been able to trust someone and to feel vulnerable with someone. And I have a lot of clients give me feedback that because I wrote for so many years about my own journey and kind of like the messiness of that road, that they feel a sense of trust with me right off the bat, because they're like, well, this guy's dumping his guts on the internet, so he must he must be trustworthy. So it actually has worked out really well, because a lot of times by the time I meet someone, there's already a sense of trust there. And so I've found that they're willing to be vulnerable with me, usually, these guys. And then I think another big component of it is that, we're all familiar with, I think that, it's kind of like the circle of young boys on the playground, right? Or like the way that like boys interact and then men interact like later in life. Like it's very shoulder to shoulder as opposed to face to face. It's like you do activities together, you go drinking beers with your buddies, you play golf, you watch sports, stuff like that. But it's not so much like, hey, we're going to go face to face here and talk to each other. So the beauty of men's groups and the men's groups that I lead is that creates the opportunity for that connection to happen in that way. Maybe usually for the first time.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. Or maybe I can be like just a guest one day, just bring in the girl. I'm not going to say anything, just observing, because, oh God, I mean, I know that when I see a man being vulnerable, but in such an authentic, it's attractive. When a guy is vulnerable and just speaks his truth, just shares his feeling. This isn't a man who's like, oh, and yes, some men need to do that to heal. But the average guy out there, it doesn't take that much work. It takes a little work to get through the unresolved issues and the healing. But it's really about just stepping into your authentic self and showing up as who you are. And that person is beautiful. And I love that the work that you're doing is teaching these guys that it's like Dr. Phil says, how's it working for you? Like obviously these guys not connecting and not being vulnerable is not working for them. So I love that you're creating these forums for these guys. And especially, I love that you said that these guys, that you're relatable. They see your vulnerability, so you're relatable, and they trust you to teach them.
Yeah, I think something that you said sparked something in me. I think one thing, the other thing that I see a lot is that we talk about guys like coming to know who they truly are, like their authentic self. One thing I see a lot with men is like guys have never had like any sort of semblance of healthy male mirroring at all. So they actually don't know who they are. And it's actually deeply troubling to them. Like, and I know it was to me too, because like one of the reasons that I identified as such like a seeker, I guess as we would call it, is because I was seeking like who the heck I really was. And I think a lot of guys go out into the world and like try on different hats and try on different identities. And they say, oh, I'm a lawyer. So that carries this set of attributes with it. I'm a finance guy. I'm a magazine editor. I'm a graphic designer, and like stuff falls in line with that. But it's like, like, because guys, I think they do identify often with their job for that reason, as giving them a set of attributes of like how they have to show up. So again, one of the really powerful things about giving men a venue to get like accurate male mirroring from each other is just the simple thing of like a guy showing up in the group and another guy being able to accurately reflect back to him like how he shows up and tell him like, man, you're like an amazing listener. And like the reactions are like, I've never heard that before. I didn't know that. Or like, oh man, you're like such a gentle guy. Like you have a lot of caring for the other guys in the group, like something like that. Like they probably have not heard that before. So it's really powerful. And through enough of those interactions, guys start to accurately see ourselves, which is huge for relationship, because like I need to see myself in order to know who I am, what I want. It's like there's an old quote about this, but it's like know who you are, know where you're going first, and then know who's going with you. So if we're talking relationship, it's like you kind of have to know where you're going first and like who you are before you decide who's going to come along with you on the trip.
Yes, and that is the work that I do with my clients also. It's you need to get clear on who you are. I have my clients make a list of their 10 qualities. They look at look at the list before they go to sleep at night so that it gets ingrained. That is the first step. It's knowing who you are so that you can also know what you're seeking. But I love the stories that you're telling. And I love that these guys are finally, it's like, I feel like you're starting, maybe it's not just you. I mean, I know a lot of other people are doing this, but not a lot actually. Are doing this work, and it's showing men that there's so much more to you than your job. Because women, we know this. Like, I know I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have my career, and I'm silly and I'm funny and I'm witty and I'm empathetic and all these things. But man, you're making such a good point that they are conditioned to grow up to be like, get a career, make the money. That's your identity. And then you're also a husband and a father. Yeah. But I love that you're taking the time, you're digging in because you've done the work.
Yeah. And there is that's such an important part of this men's work too, is like building out the rest of a guy's life. Like, like away from that, because it's so, again, like in the culture that we live in, the fact that we live in a capitalist society and all that stuff, it's easy for a man to really identify with his job as like, this is what I do, this is who I am, and there's like the other thing that I encounter a lot with guys is like when they're not working, or when they're not perhaps with their family or with their partner, or doing something that that they just automatically do outside of work, they don't really know what to do. Like, it's like, there's not a lot of, because often that connection piece of like the heartfelt connection piece is missing. It's like, it's a lot of doing and not a lot of being.
Yes. They are not connected with their joy and their passion and what makes them feel alive in this world and their purpose.
Yeah.
Because they're surviving, they're not thriving.
Yeah. And I think that what you said about connecting to that sense of passion, and like, even I would take it further and say like wonder and awe is such an important part of the process with reconnecting, or really learning who we are for the first time. Like an exercise like that I like to do is something that we actually did in class this week.
Yes, wonder and awe.
Yeah, it's like to go back to like what really, really lit you up when you were a kid. Like before any other influences came in, before there was being popular or fitting in or like school age stuff where you were like feeling a lot of social pressure, like what just lit you up inside. And also just, you know, going back in your life and seeing like what moments in your life have you felt most alive, and like connecting to the qualities that were there. Cause like that can be like a really hard question for some people. I know that would have been a really hard question for me. Just a handful of years ago, for sure.
I just got an image of us doing some sort of workshop together, but anyhow, that's separate. Yes. That is one of my favorite things to do also, to ask that question. You know, when you were little, when you were in 7th grade, when you were in high school, whatever age you can remember, or when it happened, when you felt alive, it didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like people in general, I know we're talking about men in the show, but people in general have this misconception that you get older, you graduate college, you get a job, and the fun ends. And that's it. And you just, like I said before, like you just survive, you don't thrive. But that is so far from the truth. And what we know, what you and I know, that what we're learning and what other people on these journeys are learning, is that the play never needs to end. You should always play. You should always have this joyfulness in your life. And so find your joy. You deserve it. You were born to have it. And so the only thing that's in the way of you and your joy is you. So I love that you're doing this work. I'm doing this work to get people to just get in touch with that joy and that purpose and that awe and wonder.
Totally. And I think what I see with guys too is that there's often not even the awareness that spark is missing. And I think that's the thing that this process really instills, which is so wonderful. And I want to plug a book while I can. There's a great book from the early 90s called The Fire in the Belly by Sam Keen is his name. And he talks about this 3-part process of like, the first part is sort of like breaking away from the constraints of not women, but like woman, as in sort of like breaking from the mother, right? Like, because again, to just take it back, it's like if there is no healthy male mirroring happening in a boy's youth, if there is no like sort of sense of initiation into manhood, it's like we tend to get stuck on the mother, right? And it's like we're never sort of lovingly carried over into the masculine world, right? So, and this is where you see that, like, I meet a lot of guys who like have never gone to maybe have gone to therapy for years, but have never been to like a male therapist, for instance, because they just feel more comfortable spilling their feelings to women, because that's what you learn. You know, it's like you learn as a boy. Yes, it's not safe to go to the men and talk about your feelings, so you have to go to the women. So it's like that's the break that needs to happen for just momentary, while you go and then enter this like kind of world of men, which would be like the men's groups, or like a coaching relationship with me or someone else, or a therapy relationship, or a mentor. I talk a lot about mentors. I think mentors are like incredibly important and kind of a dying practice. So there's this time when you walk in the world of men, so to speak, and then there's a reconnection to women in a healthy way. Like after that sort of that male experience has taken place. And it's not so linear, of course. Like, it's not like it's not like traditional cultures where there would actually be a severing of like the boys get taken away to, go on the sacred mountain or something and like actually have like a moment where they become a man, so to speak. So it's not linear like that, but it's like there's still like some symbolism to it, which is pretty cool.
some Jewish boys in the Jewish religion do go to Mount Masada in Israel and do become a bar mitzvah.
Well, that's a beautiful religion, you know?
Yeah.
Religion is a place that took place, but now that nobody's religious, that's not taking place.
But also, I mean, in the Jewish religion, it happens when you're 13.
Yeah.
And
right.
you don't really know what's going on. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, if I were to rewrite history or maybe just change things up, I would say, and I think about this a lot, like just even at 18, you're adult, or 13 in the Jewish religion, you're an adult, like, no, like you don't grow into yourself until like 20s, 30s. I mean, it takes a long time. So to call an 18-year-old an adult is kind of funny to me in general.
No, 18-year-olds are young. I mean, I know I was like, I don't think I felt like a man until like 36, 37.
Which 36 in, we were just talking about the Jewish religion, is double chai, which is 18 times 2, which is a great age because it's double life, double luck. Okay. I want to say this, that whoever's watching this show, I think you should go to Sean if you're a man, because some women might be creeping in there. I mean, if you ever take women as clients, I know you'd be a great coach. But anyhow, you are such a great coach for men because you're so real. And you're not you're not condescending. You're saying, look, I've done this work. You're a normal guy. You're a guy's guy. And I think that is why you've been so successful and why you're going to continue to be so successful, because men trust you. You're normal. Like when I say normal, it's hard to articulate, but you're approachable. You're approachable. And at the same time, you have all this wisdom and knowledge and experiential experiences to share. So you're just, whoever's watching, please go to Sean. Ben.
Thanks. I always say it's just because I went to the nth degree and made the most messy mistakes. That's the only place I learned, you know, like I feel like I'm really stubborn. So it's like what someone else might get on like the 19th time, it took me 119 times to get it. So it's like I have that much more takeaway from the process. Yeah, exactly.
But that makes you even more real. I mean, you're like, yeah, dude, like it takes time. You got to mess up. It takes time. It takes time for everybody to eventually heal and awaken and evolve and get to that place that you want to get to and show up as your authentic self. So we are running out of time. Speaking of time. So once again, tell us about this group that you do. Tell us about your website again, your Instagram, how people can find you, everything.
My website is just my name. It's SeanHotchkiss.com, SeanHotchkiss.com. That's my coaching website. I do have an Instagram. I don't use it too much, but it's my name, Sean_Hotchkiss. And I occasionally have some videos where I drive in the car and riff on certain topics, which are fun.
Okay, I have to promote this right now because I don't know how many you've done, but they're so authentic, so great. There's a sense of humor. I love the idea. It's like Seinfeld talking in the cars with the coffee, whatever, but without Seinfeld and without the coffee. But I just love what you're doing because the truth is when we're driving around it is like a freeing time as long as you keep your eye on the road and stay safe. But yeah, go to his Instagram, watch these videos. They're very inspirational.
I think driving time is all like shower time. It's like good thoughts. Yeah. Good thoughts bubble up. They percolate.
I used to drive before I lived in LA. I would drive from San Diego to LA to do this show when it was in person. And the 2.5, sometimes 4 hours, whatever. Never turned on the radio, never really did anything. I just thought and created. And yeah, I love the driving time. Oh, I should have been doing some Instagram stories. Okay.
It's not too late. I'm sure you're in traffic all the time.
You know what? You're an inspiration to do some of these things as long as you keep your eye on the road and be safe. Okay, so we're almost done. Sean, what would you say top 1, top 2, top 3, whatever. Just some of the greatest inspirational, life-changing things that have happened in your life that you would like to leave our audience with today.
The thing that's coming to mind first is that it's so important one of the reasons why it's so important to go on this journey of self-exploration is like, if you really follow it through the gunk, through the gnarly stuff, through everything that comes up when you initially do that first turn inward and you're like, whoa, especially for dudes, I will say, like, there's a lot of shit usually that we've been ignoring for our entire lives. So when we first turn around and start looking at it, it can be pretty gnarly. So I just want to say that, like, if you make it through the gnarly stuff, and I encourage
when you
make it through the gnarly stuff, well said. When you make it through the gnarly stuff, on the other side of it is such an incredible sense of freedom. It's such an incredible sense of, I would say, natural confidence, because you're not trying to be anything. You're just you. Like, it's just, you're here. Like, this is me. This was my life. I don't have anything to hide. I appreciate myself as I am. I don't want to be anyone else. Like, it's just like, this is it. And like that, I think that process of learning to really, like, I would say, love and appreciate yourself and just, like, you know, come out and be like, hey, this is me. This is my deal. Like, that's just so empowering, and it's super, super attractive.
Super attractive. Which brings me to, we have like 2 more minutes. I am sending so much love and light to you and to any other man on this journey, because I know that all of you guys are going to find the right person for you, because you're doing this work. And you're going to have to come back on the show again, because we didn't really get into, like, then the next step of the dating and everything, which is my favorite topic. Yes. But you guys, because you do this work, you will find that right person for you, that person that came to this earth to be with you. And Sean, you are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And as always, everyone can reach me at therelationshipexpert.com. And just thank you, Sean. I'm in gratitude.
Thank you, Jamie. It was really fun and always good to see you.
You too. So join us every week. Love Talk Live on LA Talk Radio, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone.
You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.